I'm going to tear down this turbo. I was told this is a VS Racing 6262. I'm going to go tear it down, see what I like about it, what I don't like about it, so we can determine if this is a good quality turbo. I'll show you a couple things I like and don't like. Based on the way this looks, it does not look like a 6262 at all. I don't know if this guy just didn't know what he bought or what he had. These holes, I mean, they could have been reamed out. They could be a little bit cleaner. It's not trimmed up or anything. I guess you kind of get what you pay for, because these apparently are not very expensive to buy. It's got a billet compressor wheel that looks pretty good quality. It's got anti-surge. That's what the holes here and that leads to that port is. 4-inch inlet, and then that's a TO4S compressor housing. So not really a bad deal for the cover and wheel. I don't know really how much he paid for this. Now when we start looking here at the sides, the exhaust housing, it's kind of your typical eBay housing that they sell for around $100. So I think for $100, that's a pretty good deal for just the housing. Is what I see those online for. This is a interlocking V-band connection, so I don't know if he got the clamp for that, or the clamp and flange for that. But if you don't have those two pieces, then they have to be made, otherwise it's kind of worthless. The feed hole right there, you can tell, is just by looking at it, this is not a genuine style cartridge or ball bearing turbocharger. I don't know what's inside this, so we're going to take it apart and find out. There's no O-ring on this, which that's pretty common even with the Garrett turbos. I've had people try to tell me that they don't leak, but I find that to be not true. And even if it did leak, didn't leak, it wouldn't take very much of a nick or a burr on this piece to raise it up and make it leak. So I always go back and machine a groove right here for an O-ring so that they seal. That way the turbo will make a lot more horsepower. Seeing how big the exducer is, it does look like it's some kind of 35R size wheel. The 6262 had an 82mm exducer, so did the 35R. So this may be a 6262 copy or something along those lines. The turbine wheel looks just like a GT35R. Let's take it apart and see what the cartridge looks like inside. So I pulled the shaft out. This is right-hand thread, or left-hand thread I mean, so you have to act like you're tightening it. First thing to do is to mark the shaft, wheel, and the nut, and so you can keep the location when you go to put it back together, if you plan on running this turbo. But based on seeing this turbo, it's a copy, so it's not a genuine turbo. This one may work, I don't know. I've never seen this style. This is pretty decent in size right there. So the main problems with the ones that have issues is this piece is not wide enough to have enough ground on that bearing for it to be able to not wear out, to not hold it in place like it's supposed to. This one, you can see it's got 3 oil ports there. I've never seen a style like that. This one's got a 360-degree bearing in it, but this is not a ball bearing turbocharger. I don't know what this guy paid for this, but if he paid as if it was advertised as a ball bearing turbo, then I would suggest that he gets his money back, because I can't guarantee that this turbo will even last. Looking over it, it looks like it has 2 TO4E journal bearings, and this is machined out bigger than the normal ball bearing rear seal, which means based on the way it looks like it's a TO4E rear seal rather than a GT28 or GT35R rear seal. The turbine on the left is the style that comes out of the Garrett turbos. The turbine on the right is a turbine that came out of this turbo. The left one is ball bearing, the right one is this journal bearing turbo. The way the quality looks, it actually looks like it will work because the collars are pretty decent in size. This piece right here is actually pretty thick in width, so that should hold up. Plus it's got 3 oil ports there. I think the quality would actually work as a regular turbo, but if this is being sold as a ball bearing turbo, then that's not really an ethical way to sell somebody a turbo. There probably isn't a good source of replacement parts for this besides some of the basic parts. I'm not sure if this thrust bearing can be replaced. The rear seal, if it's a TO4E and the journal bearings, or if they're TO4E, then I have replacements for those parts. But the collar, which is the silver piece behind the bearing, the thrust bearing, and this seal plate, and this, well, this collar, actually, that's a spacer in there. All these parts are not readily available, and the turbo is probably priced so you would just buy another one if it had a failure. If they don't really work that great, then you're basically just buying the turbo at your expense to try their new design, to say that they've never tested it and know that it works reliably. This is not a 6262. The compressor wheel is a little bit smaller. I got 61.4 millimeter, which is a 35R compressor wheel. The turbine wheel is the same size as a 6262, which is the same size as a GT35R turbine, which is 62.35 millimeter. You know, a lot of the parts in this are not very common, so if you had to rebuild one, you may as well just buy another turbo.